I'm Joe Lample. When I created Growing a Greener World, I had one goal: to tell stories of everyday people, innovators, entrepreneurs, forward-thinking leaders who are all, in ways both big and small, dedicated to organic gardening and farming, lightening our footprint, conserving vital resources, protecting natural habitats, making a tangible difference for us all. They're real, they're passionate, they're all around us. They're the game changers who are literally growing a greener world and inspiring the rest of us to do the same. Growing a greener world, it's more than a movement, it's our mission. Three, two. In 2009, the idea was born. A new television series that focused on sustainability and everything that entailed, from organic backyard gardens to companies big and small that put stewardship ahead of stock price, to simple things we could all do to be better stewards of the planet. The idea was to shed the spotlight on those people and places that were making a difference, or as we like to say in the early days, growing a greener world. And through that process, we not only found our mission, we found our name too. Ready? How's that? Good? Good. Now, Growing a Greener World has traveled to over half the 50 states and even crossed international borders to find those people and places who are at the forefront of the sustainable lifestyle movement. We've seen incredible gardens in unexpected places, on the rooftops of metropolitan office buildings, on a modified school bus traveling the country, even inside nondescript shipping containers. We've met inspiring individuals who have revitalized crumbling neighborhoods and raised up entire communities just by planting a few vegetables. And we've seen firsthand how it's all up to us, from government officials to everyday school kids, to celebrity chefs, to returning war veterans, to pitch in and do our part in growing that greener world that's in our name. And as we close in on 100 episodes, we still have lots of stories to tell. Now, it takes a lot of talented people to make this show come together, but before any episode of Growing a Greener World makes it to your television set, it starts with a plan. And that plan is usually a collaborative conversation with Teresa Lowe. Now, Teresa is our co-executive producer, and we like to call her T-Lo. Now, she's an accomplished gardener in her own right. She's a master food preserver, she's a published author, she's an urban homesteader and a blogger, and you name it, she's done it. Now, Teresa, you and I have a lot of jobs to do, and we have to sift through hundreds of topics and ideas and locations and people. And so there's plenty of work, right? Talk about some of that.
Yeah, I have to order your coffee and your lunch and plan out your day and schedule everything. No, we have hundreds of ideas in our bucket list, and some of those ideas we came up with, and some of them some viewers sent to us. It's really nice. We get ideas from all over the country, but it is very, very difficult to narrow down those hundreds to just the few we can cover every season. And sometimes it's one topic that can be covered in 10 different ways in 10 different parts of the country, and we have to pick not only the topic, but where to do it and who we're going to feature. One of the funnest part of my jobs is to call up the person who we're going to feature and say, do you want to be on television? Yeah. And they get very excited because they've worked so hard to make a difference, and we're going to give them a little bit of recognition, and that's really fun. It's a fun part of the job that we get to do. But after that, after we have that all planned out, then you and I have to first fight over who's going to tell the story, because we split them up. But
as far as the writing.
Yeah, all the writing. So we have to come up with a way to tell this story, and we put it all on paper, and that's our outline. Yeah. We outline how we want to tell this story.
Now, this outline is like a 30,000-foot view. We keep it broad to begin with, but it's our idea on paper of where we see this show going. And then we hand it off to the big guy. Now, the big guy is Todd Brock. Todd is our consulting producer. Now, this is a real pro in the television business. He has over 1,000 hours of TV credits on his bio, and he's really good at breaking down the broad concept and making it more refined. And he has a real method to his madness, too. Talk about that, Todd.
I'm coming at it fresh. A lot of times when I get that outline from you, we're doing a whole show on a topic I've never even heard of before, and I have to start by looking up that word to see what it even means. But in a lot of ways, that's a good perspective for us to have on this show, because I'm not a master gardener. I'm more of the weekend warrior type. I go out and putter in my backyard, so I'm coming at it really fresh, and it's important to bring that perspective to it as well, because while I think we want this show to give good information, to master gardeners, to professionals, to people who live, breathe, and eat this stuff. I think it's also just as important to make sure we're giving good, accessible, relatable information to the novice, to the newbie, to somebody who's turned on our show for the very first time and may not be as familiar with the topic we're talking about. So I think that's really important to try to do both with every episode of the show.
So once we have the idea on paper and it's been refined and blessed by Todd, we know it's a great concept and it's going to work. But then it has to look good once we're out here. Now we're fortunate enough to have Todd and Tilo on location from time to time. But there's one guy that's on location all the time, and that's Carl Pennington. The only thing is you rarely see him in front of the camera because his job is to be behind the camera and make everything look good. But he's a real pro. He's been around forever. He's a director of photography and he has so many other talents. And I think we ought to hear from Carl's perspective too.
Hey, I look pretty good on TV. Maybe I should be on TV.
Now, Carl, we get a lot of emails all the time on many different subjects, but there's one email we get more than any other, and it's on the same subject, and that's how much people like watching our show. They just think it's beautiful, and it's the guy behind the camera that's setting up those shots. A lot of credit for that goes to you. Talk about the process, because when we get here, we have very limited time.
Right.
And you're jumping out of the truck or the car, and you're heading off, and I can tell what you're doing. You're looking for those shots.
Right, yeah, we only have 2 days, and sometimes less than that. And I have to scope out this place within 30 minutes because we're running out of light already as the day gets started. So we've got to get all the shots in. But yeah, going around, looking and trying to get the right angles and stuff and position the interviews and stuff, it's a challenge, especially in that little bit of time. You know, normally we would have time to scout things out and have days to prepare and draw stuff out. But, you know, it's just me and my brother. And you know,
that's it.
Sometimes another PA, and that's it.
A lot of people expect us to show up with a whole army, a big production crew, a big Spielberg-sized production, and this is it. It's just you.
Lean.
Well, I also think part of that is not only your talent and skill in making that all happen, but it's also the fact that we shoot a lot of stuff while we're here. That's a big complaint of yours, right?
Yeah, especially when we do the guest interviews.
Yeah.
You know, they're allotted 3 minutes, sometimes less.
Yeah.
So.
But how much footage do you have to get to?
27 minutes plus. I mean, there was one guest one time there was 57 minutes, and I'm sitting there going.
For a 3-minute interview.
For a 3-minute interview, I get it. We have to pull sound bites out. I understand, but you know, just the ratio, shot ratio is crazy.
It's the nature of the beast. That I know that always surprises people when they find out how much footage we collect for each show. So how much footage do you end up with? Typical episode that has to get down to 16 minutes to tell the story. How much footage do you?
5-6 hours of footage to tell a 16-minute piece.
But you know my favorite expression, every time you come to me complaining about how much we're shooting, it's always, it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it.
It is.
And in the end, we put together not a finished product, but what we call a rough cut. And that's where you've gone back with all this footage and you've gotten it down to what, 26 minutes is the approximate time of the finished product. And you've done your editing, but then it comes to us. And now it's our job to take what you've done and add our 2 cents in our case, and then Todd's 50 cents for sure at least, with our comments, right? And we have a few things to say relative to what Todd has to say.
Right, we'll have this much in our text and he'll have a couple pages, but it's all great stuff. And sometimes you like to rearrange, which it's brilliant.
And I cringe, because there's so much effort. After David and I go in the editing process and we lay out all the music and everything, and then when Todd goes, let's move this guy here because it really will balance out. I'm like, I get it, but I'm going, I gotta do all that. I mean, it's just.
Well, that's really that rough cut. That's the last chance that any of us have to look at it and make any changes we want. And those changes can be really small. From there's an audio issue here, or I can hear wind in this shot, or little things like that. Music. Very minor thing, and sometimes it's huge things where when I look at it from a storytelling standpoint, okay, we laid it out that way on paper and it sounded good, but now that you actually see it on television, boy, that chapter 3, so to speak, that's really what should start the show. We need to rearrange everything.
Right. I need to go work on the cameras.
Thank you. I was
there's
getting a little nervous.
One of them over there.
All right, thanks, guys.
Now, as much planning that takes place after the show is shot, when we're on location shooting that show, there are a million things that can go wrong or that we haven't planned for. Things that can take place while we shoot. Things like weather, lighting, technical difficulties, challenging locations, and all the way down to something as simple as me remembering my lines, which rarely is a problem. Putting an episode together on paper is hard enough, but actually getting it shot is much, much harder. Guys, what do you think is the most challenging thing on location?
Weather.
Okay, I agree with that. There have been times where we have had to make the decision whether or not we're going to scrap the day, which is very expensive because everybody comes to the scene and, you know, it's a big investment in all of that. And I can't really afford to call it and wait for the rain to stop. And yet at the same time, because of our production values, you want a nice looking show. But we've actually lost a camera one time because of the rain down in Dominico, shooting through the rain. We were in rainforest. That might have been part of the problem.
It was major raining.
It was, and I never heard the end of that, but definitely rain. How about something else?
Temperatures. Temperatures. I mean, we're on you all the time about
Hands in the pockets.
Yeah,
I don't see the problem with that, hands in the
sometimes
pocket.
we shoot when it's cold outside. The problem with cold is, unless you're doing a documentary on emperor penguins, or it's actively snowing, you can't tell on television when it's cold.
Okay.
Except for when you wander through the scene with your hands shoved in your pockets shivering. Even when it's cold, we need you to look like it's toasty warm.
Now, my pet peeve issue is audio. There are always audio issues, no matter where you go, whether it's people or jets or birds even. I mean, we're out in nature. Sometimes it's the birds that are the problem. And with us being on so many farms, one of the most common issues are the roosters. You know, the roosters like to be heard, and they like to get in the middle of my lines, which is not so cool.
Mindful of their impact on the environment, they only distribute their produce within a 40-mile radius of the rooster. 3, 2. 3, 2. Mindful of... Stop it. You're not in the chicken show.
You know, I think one of the big challenges when you're talking about production challenges and telling that story is having to match footage. Like you talked about temperature, but sometimes we've got to match. We have to use one location to stand in for another location because we've painted ourselves into a corner. Do we want to tell the Dominica story? Go ahead, Joe.
Tell the story, Joe.
Okay, so we have this outline that you know that we go by. We get out on location, and in the perfect plan, we stick to the outline and we check off everything as we go. Now, Dominica was a different situation. We're in a different country. We're there for 8 days. My luggage was missing for 7 of those 8 days, but we managed to get it done, or so I thought. So we're taking off, watching the island disappear out the window underneath us, and I've got my outline out, just making sure that I've checked everything off. Lo and behold, the first thing I come to, which is the intro to the show, doesn't have a check mark by it. And I really don't remember shooting that scene. Well,
Because you didn't.
because I didn't, which is the reason. So now we have a real problem because, you know, sometimes we can go back to that location and reshoot that to make it whole. But when you're leaving a foreign country that takes 2 days to get to, we don't really have the resources to just turn the plane around. So we had a real dilemma here. Well, luckily, we were going to be in San Francisco about a week later. And San Francisco has some areas geographically that mimic Dominica. So what did we do? We just decided to shoot that opening scene there. Now, the problem was...
You had a haircut.
I had a haircut in between, and I didn't have the shirt. I didn't bring the shirt to San Francisco that I had in Dominica. Well, thank goodness for overnight mail. And the only guy that picked up on the haircut issue is Mr. Eagle Eye over here. You know, thinking about Dominica and then a week later in San Francisco reminds me how many places we've been in a short period of time. And in that time, we've shot so many different episodes. And I know that we each have to have at least one favorite, right?
Yeah.
I have many favorites, so it's kind of hard, but I have 2 that I could talk about. The first being the Edible Schoolyard. That was the first one I ever did for you, the first one I ever produced and field produced, and the story is just so dear to my heart because it's about children learning to be stewards of the earth, learning about where their food comes from, and the people there were so incredible. It just was really a great shoot. And the second one is probably the one that you filmed in my backyard about urban homesteading, living homegrown fresh.
Because you like the commute?
The commute was great. The commute was great. And having my kids on TV was really, really fun. They just loved it. They felt like big time movie stars.
And your chickens.
And my chickens stole the show, which was a little upsetting to me, but they still have fan mail, which is kind of fun. But it was a fun shoot to have all of us together in my backyard.
Yeah. How about you, Todd?
Oh, you know, the one that comes to mind first is the very first show we did, Greensboro. We went to downtown Philadelphia, this very urban setting, and there was this amazing garden in the middle of it. We met some incredible people, and I think it stands out to me because it was the first episode. And you and I had talked about the idea for this show and the kinds of stories we were going to tell, but then to actually be on the ground shooting it, and there it was all around us. That was the first moment that I really felt like, okay, I know what this show's going to be about, and I like it. It's what we talked about.
Well, Greensboro really epitomized what I envisioned for this whole series to be about. Stewardship, a great place, a great person. I mean, it had everything, and to this day, it's still one of my favorites, absolutely.
What about you?
Well, every show has a favorite element to me. So it'd be hard for me to actually pick one, but I can tell you that there are, there's a favorite, and that was the time that we got together for the Backyard Chicken Show, because you wrote it, and you had a unique role in that show too. Not only were you in the show for the first time, now the second, but you played a big part in building the coop.
Yeah, you know, I love a good DIY segment. I'm always on you about let's demonstrate how to build something.
I still think that's one of our best DIYs.
Well, and what better way to make sure that gets included in the show than to build it myself? Total coincidence, I happen to have written a book about chicken coops, and when you talked about the idea of making that the focus of an episode, we saw an opportunity to include a DIY segment and get a guest expert, big time air quotes there, at the same time. And it was a lot of fun getting to go out there and build a coop that I had designed for a book I had written. It all came together really nicely.
And we have a lot of fun whenever we're together, but on every shoot there is fun. And the other element that I remember, and I will remember for the rest of my life, was this spontaneous moment. It was in the first season. We had done a show in Seattle on composting. And at the end of the day, we'd finally got through a very difficult day. It was cold and it was windy and it rained, all those elements that we've already talked about. But it was that sense of relief that the day was over. And here I am standing in front of this huge compost pile, this finished compost pile. And for some reason, I felt the urge to dive into it. Now, Carl didn't know what I was gonna do, and I just said, Carl, follow me. And here I go. And I just did my thing.
It is an entirely unnatural love of compost.
Somersault, ready? One,
Oh
two. You know, just sitting here thinking about the episodes that mean the most to us. The other one to me that we've done more recently was just from this season, the Veterans Farmers. That was such an impactful story, and I don't mind admitting that sitting there watching the rough cut of that one, I teared up at a few moments. So I can only imagine you guys were out there hearing them tell the stories.
You did.
It was really powerful, and that sort of drove home for a split second even that this has the opportunity and the chance every once in a while to be more than just a TV show, and that's really, really special.
For the first time in a long time, I actually did something accomplished, and seeing it here through the garden, I can say I actually accomplished something. And same thing from the military. I accomplished a lot in the military, and since I came back, I really haven't seen the accomplishment or had the accomplishment, and it kind of restored that in my life.
Makes you feel whole.
Oh yes.
From the very beginning, we've always wanted to incorporate cooking into growing a greener world. I mean, what's the point of going to all that work all year round to grow the freshest fruits and vegetables and herbs if you don't know what to do with them once you get them in the kitchen? Now, I love to cook, but there's a lot of information I don't know. So it made sense to hire a professional chef to round out our lineup, but one that shared our beliefs in using the freshest ingredients and could show us simple, easy ways to use them. And who we got was Nathan Lyon.
You know, I love a good summer melon, this beautiful muskmelon or cantaloupe. But how do you pick them out? Real vanilla extract. Make sure it says real vanilla extract, guys. You don't want to know where the fake stuff comes from, so use the good stuff.
This is not easy work, guys, which means that when you go to your farmer's market or the CSA and you get these beautiful bags of mesclun and fresh greens that have been picked the day before or that day,
use them with purpose. The butternut squash, you're literally marrying these both seasons together.
We are. We're really excited. You know, we've been, winter here in the Northwest is...
And I like to use my hands to toss this, guys, because watercress is very delicate. You don't want to bruise it. You know, wherever we travel on Growing a Greener World, we like to support restaurants that support their local growers. And that's why I'm here at 4th and Swift to bring Chef Swift this delicious bag. That's right, Joe, but whether it's a community kitchen or your own kitchen, you're still gonna need stuff like this. Olive oil, salt, black pepper. So where do you go? Well, you come here to your community grocery store. And this is where you're gonna find me, in the perimeter of the grocery store.
We're looking forward to a lot more great memories and recipes in season 4, but things might look a little bit different as it relates to the kitchen. Now, a lot of people want to know, where is Nathan's Kitchen? Well, Nathan's Kitchen is my kitchen in Mount Airy, North Carolina, and we rigged it up for all the things that you need to shoot high quality food TV. We mounted the cameras on the ceiling, and my wife wasn't a big fan of that, but it worked. But we had the nice center island and the gas cooktop. It was great. But we moved to Atlanta, so what do? Well, guess what? We recreated it here. Now, with the help of Bruce Bell, our renovation and remodeling expert, I think we're doing pretty well, and it looks like we're on schedule, right?
We are. We're ahead of schedule.
Sweet. All right. So a lot of people also don't realize that in the course of these 26 episodes, all of those 26 cooking shows are shot in the course of just about a week. So Nathan, who lives in LA, we fly him out to where the kitchen is. And Teresa, who lives in LA, stays in LA, and she does her field production from there. But I think we've got that system figured out pretty well.
Yeah, it works great. I'm on Skype,
Yep.
and you set me up so I can see the whole set. I can see what Nathan's doing. Only thing I don't get is the smells and the wonderful flavors of what he's cooking.
I hate that for you. I'm sorry. But let's admit, it comes down to the end game, that great finished dish that we're all looking forward to seeing. That's the most important shot. That's the beauty shot of it all. And then he has his catchphrases, you know, where he takes it and he presents it to America, and he just always has that clever way of saying it. And I've always wanted to do this, so I'm going to do it. So there you have it, America. Fresh honey roasted granola with a ginger snap cookie and a chocolate coated blah, blah, blah. Enjoy.
No. First of all, you're not smiling enough. You gotta do the eyebrow thing.
You know, it's my first try. Give me a break, guys.
Eyebrows.
Parmigiano Reggiano, right over top. And we're done. Delicious. Great for any time. And if you want this recipe, growingagreenerworld.com, and it's right there for you. Enjoy.
So now that you have a better idea how the show comes together, what can you look forward to in season 4? Well, we'll be back on the road, visiting places like this, Gibbs Gardens in North Georgia. It's a 350-acre private home garden that was recently opened to the public. And we'll tell more stories of people and places that are growing a greener world every day. And we can't wait to get started, but actually we already have. We'll cover topics like the $25 Victory Garden, where I create a garden totally from scratch to feed my family of 4 all season long for a total investment of $25 or less. And we're going to go more in depth into canning and preserving the harvest with Tilo, because that's something many of you have told us you're really interested in. And we'll roll up our sleeves and do more hands-on gardening in a new garden set we're building. So look for a lot more tips and tricks you can use in your own backyard. Those are just a few of the things that you can look forward to in season 4. But if you'd like to get caught up on some of the most amazing people and places we've covered in seasons 1 through 3, you can find that on our website, because we have all of our past episodes there and Chef Nathan's cooking recipes and a lot more information than that. The address on our website is the same as our name. It's growingagreenerworld.com. I'm Joe Lample. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you back here next time for more Growing a Greener World.